Hello.
Yeah, hello. Who is it?
May I ask
Pooja.
one simple question? Actually, I just see that there are some programming assignments added in the
Yeah, we will.
dashboard.
Yeah, we were just going
Yeah,
to tell you about.
yeah. I just wanted to ask that the due date is 16th January, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Because in earlier other one also we had some different. Then they changed it to 9th, so that's why.
No, no.
Thanks.
Here the due date would be same, and it would be 16 January
Okay, okay. For all of them, right? All
for all
programming.
of them. For all of them.
Thanks, thanks,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, I think we can start today's session. Ma'am, Dhanya ma'am, do you want to tell them about the programming assignment first, or we will do it later?
Bhaskar, I think we can do it towards the end so that more people are have joined.
Joined, right? Okay. 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 So we'll do that later. Okay. So in week 2 today's session, so I would expect that more of you have actually gone through the content and tried some first-hand Java coding. So yeah. So at first, I would like to ask if you have any doubts, any questions that you want to ask. So we will address that first, and then I think we will move to some discussion of some topics and some question pertinent to this particular week. Yeah. So any doubt, any question, if you have, you may ask. Acha, can I see can you all raise hands who all have gone through the content and yeah, at least tried a the most simplest code. Yeah, so be honest about it, because that will decide what we will discuss in today's session and how will we discuss it. So yeah, so be honest if you have gone through, and if you have not, then please tell that. Okay, so only 10 participants. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, you may lower your hand. See, if you do not do the content in the week, na, the problem is when we move to the next week, these doubts that you will have while reading that week, the previous week, you will not be able to clear those, and it would remain there and it would cause you problems. Okay, anyways, we have also session on Saturday, so I hope many more hands I can see on that day. But for those who have completed the content and yeah, so do you have any doubt, any question regarding, I mean, it is the first time you are seeing Java. I mean, if you are new to programming, then so any doubt with respect to formulation of quest programming, I would say, how would you think in terms of Java? So thinking Python, thinking Java, right? You see a real life problem, how you map it to a Java program and how you map it to a Python program. I'm saying Python because you have learned that as a part of your curriculum. That's why. So mapping these two things are different, right? So can anyone comment on that? So let us have a brief discussion on that first. Then we will go.
Can I ask
Yeah,
some
Kumar. So yeah,
Yes.
okay. Can we have a little discussion on that, and then we move to the doubts? So can someone tell me the basic difference you see while approaching a problem in Python and approaching a problem in Java?
Yeah, that's only I wanted to ask.
Okay, yeah. Then go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the beginning half of the 3 lecture, it's only depend on that, how the Java is formulated and how it is working.
Yes,
So
yes.
whatever the thing is that in the Python, we use that independently code, and we use that also independently method, or we can say the function. And but in the Java, everything is the inside always in the class, and it is the kind of collection of the classes. It's and one class is always in the a separate file. So every method it is that lie inside the class. So this so Python is not like that. It is not that compact. It is the so much freedom there. We can write code individually as a line, bunch of the line as the method or function, function, and also the entire program as a inside the class. We can do anything there. And and here something was we was going, and one thing I want to you to clear more about the aesthetic, the word aesthetic. So whenever we go inside the class, so we write the public static void main.
Yeah.
So what's that's the means of that static here works. So if you tell that how actually the working, how will think static, the what is importance, it is written in the 1 2 sentence that okay, it's doing something compact inside that class itself. So but want to know the little more about the word actually static. And the public is the two places. One public is inside the on the beginning of the declaration of the class, and the another public is inside the main method.
Yep.
So this two public, what is the in general the effect when we thinking about the large programming?
Okay.
And the third thing, that why he told that that main has taken from that um, from the C, and that's why we have written the first function, first method inside the class is the main. And what's about the constructor, that like in the Python, whenever we declare something in the class, so we use constructor, not always required, but the if constructor, then we use one function main as a constructor. So how it's related to the main is related to the Python constructor or something. So the three thing is I want to know in the discuss. So whenever we correlate the code myself, then I have a command of that these 3 4
Okay,
words.
got it. So we will address that. But Kumar, can you be a little more specific on your third point? I could not get what you want actually from the third.
Third point means about the main, no?
Yeah, yeah, main and constructor. You were saying something. So first we
Yes.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually that actually fourth point I will tell that constructor, but third point is the main. Whenever sir was talking and he's told that main actually method has taken from the C, where we write the C and the after block we write the some code. So that exactly main has taken from the C idea, and we
Okay.
write the main. Can we change the name of mains else or the something?
Okay, got it. So the idea of main method, right? Okay. Okay.
Yes, yes, and what is the constructor? Will we
Construct.
study in the further or that? So
Mm-hmm.
whenever we call the class in the Python, so whenever constructor is defined in the Python, automatically class called as a constructor. Whatever we pass in the object,
Uh-huh.
whenever time of creating object through the class, whatever we pass is something to the class, it's go automatically in the constructor.
Yeah.
So in that way, I want to know how it is correlated, that underscore init in that constructor is defined in
Okay.
the Python classes.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
how it is that main, and is that something like that in the Java, or the
Got
main
it.
is operating that way?
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay, fine. Fine. Okay, so we'll discuss that. Noted. Okay,
Yeah.
so these are the doubts related to Java. So as Kumar initially gave his views on what is the basic difference between framing, or I would say the perspective of solving a real life problem in Java and in Python. I mean, yeah. So on that topic, if someone else also wants to comment, so we would hear that first and then we will move on to the doubts. Yeah.
Hi, this is Pooja.
Yeah.
Actually, I would request you to kindly discuss this structure and the operations once again, starting with the basic this code we were printing, this hello world. Because in the lecture also there are so many things discussed which are like very difficult to understand. Like there are streams and system and all these different methods.
Okay,
So
so
if you
the
can
skeleton of the
once
program,
more,
right? Skeleton of the program.
yeah, the skeleton. Yeah, once more if you can please
Okay,
discuss it.
fine. Okay, noted. Skeleton of program. Okay, do you have any views on general perspective of I mean the way you program in Java and the way you program in Python?
The basic thing I understand is Java looks very complicated.
Okay.
Means if you compare with Python,
Yeah.
even if you compare with like C or other languages, also even it looks different. Like so many things you're defining now, this public class.
Yes.
Then again inside you are defining public static. So like it's right now it's actually very, for beginners it's like not easy. You can understand.
Yeah, understand. So see, the more you get complexity, right? The more you also get to control in everything. So
that's correct. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it may be difficult at first, but the more complexity you are getting, that means the more features are under your control. You can manipulate them the way you want. So yeah, I will discuss the skeleton. No issues.
Yeah.
Got it.
So in starting weeks, it will be nice if you can discuss like basic like programming and these small programs. Then I think it will help us when we will practice.
Okay, fine. So yeah, Kumar, you wanted to say something else?
Yes, sir. No, sorry to interrupt. Simultaneously, I have a also point of view on the Java. Whatever I felt apart from that question.
Yeah.
So when I was according to sir explaining the each word in the public static void main. So I was feeling that it is giving simultaneously more control also everything the clearly where I'm doing what. Which is not in the Python like that. Python is that the mostly thing is the understood by the compiler, or that we are focus on that mainly output or and our logic.
Yeah.
Not actually the how program works. And these things lead us sometimes to create some optimization, and we get a sometimes confusion whenever we don't have idea how actually program work.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
That Python is that very good whenever we have some nice logic and we want to implement very fast, we can do it. But the moment we go in the depth in the Python, even to optimize the things and the secure the things and the many things too, then we can get so much depth in the Python, and again Python also become complicated when we go more and more inside.
Yeah. So basically, here you are seeing more the programming aspect of it, and that's why you know how it performs, and you can do a little bit. When you understand it, you can do better optimization. Correct.
Yeah. Yes. So I understood this the little bit of the concept. What's the sense of this? But want to know that actually how it's working in the proper way.
We will do that. We will do that in the course, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay Kashyap, do you want to ask? Do you want to tell something? You have raised your hand. Sarthak Gautam and Jay Kashyap, both of you have raised your hand. So Sarthak, you can go ahead. Yeah.
So actually, could you just stress on or shed some light on type conversions in Java?
Type conversions.
Like we have implicit and explicit type conversion in C++. So we have them in Java too. And in one of the activity questions, we have string plus integer. So the integer becomes string and concatenate to itself. So could we have that?
Okay. Yeah. That one. That okay. Got it. So see, that question is more with respect to. Yeah, Jay, you can go ahead just after I address Sarthak. Then you go ahead, and after that, Mr. Sandeep can take. So yeah, so I think Sarthak, type conversion we will deal with more vigor when we move to inheritance and the subsequent weeks. But what you mean particularly is that question with println and all. So that is more to do with conversion is obviously happening, but yeah, I think I will discuss that once again. And type conversion we can briefly discuss now. Once we move to inheritance, we will do the conversion of type, casting of types in a better way. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Jay, you may go ahead.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible.
Sir, we will be only using scanner classes or buffer classes also.
We'll go to that later. Yeah, you can use.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. See, if anyone wants to, what I intended was that if someone wants to say with your brief, I mean, the first view of Java, what do you understand? How do you plan a program, and what is the difference in planning the answer? So that's what I want actually. Then we will start the session and I will address the doubts one by one. So if someone wants to say that, we can go ahead. Otherwise, I will start it and then you can ask the doubts. Okay. Yeah, Arun Kumar, Ajay Kashyap, you can lower your hand, right? You addressed your program. Your problem has been addressed, right? Yeah. Arun Kumar, you can please unmute yourself and tell.
Yeah, sir, am I audible?
You are audible.
Yeah, so one of the differences that I understood till now is the public keyword is not used in Python.
Okay.
So
So can
it
you
may be used
tell
to,
me from an overview of it? I mean, not very specific syntactical thing, but
I know this already because we are using this for abstraction, right?
okay.
To like hide the implementation details.
Okay, so let's do it in another way. I will just see. I would have done it in the form of an interactive one, but I don't think many of you have gone through the lectures. That's why I did not do it at first. But let's do it. So I would ask you all I'm asking you all a question. Give your responses in 2-3 lines of text in the. I'm sharing one. I mean this peer deck session. Please give your responses in that session. Okay. Just a second. The question I will tell what I want to hear, because this is important. The syntactical thing will come, but this thing is important. The how you plan a program, right? Initially, and what is the basic difference. Then all the doubts I have noted, then we will go to the doubts and questions. Just give me a minute. Okay, you all can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can you all go to the joinpd.com and give this code and join it? Only 2 people joined. If you have an issue, you can unmute and tell. You have to go to joinpd.com and put this code AXQIQB. Okay. I will give the question when more students join.
Is there any space?
I don't think, no.
Oh, okay. AXQIQB.
Yeah. You don't have to write a response now. I mean, I have not asked you the question. Yeah, I am asked once some other students also join, I will ask. 21. We have 52, so let's wait for 26 at least. Okay, anyways, fine, 25. So yeah, see, my question is, you need to have this is about a program, just crudely speaking, not at a high level, not exact implementation of it. So what I want is, I would ask you this question and you have to write 2-3 line of responses, or maybe more if you want, that how will you approach this in Java and how will you approach this in Python. Okay, Java, little bit, whatever you have learned. So you are introduced with the concept of class, right? And obviously you know that any programming language has arrays and function and the loops, normal programming constructs, right? And you have been introduced with classes and objects, right? So with this knowledge only you answer. So suppose you need to create, you need to create a software which will manage a library system. Okay, a library system would be managed by your software, right? Now, what the librarian want is, as a developer, the librarian has told you that you are a developer, and the librarian has told you, okay, so I need to represent each student. I need to have something to represent each student. Each student will have three types, let's say three types of credentials, maybe his class, maybe his roll number, okay, and his maybe date of birth. Okay, date of birth, roll number, and class. These three things a student must possess. Okay, and I want to have two different uh, activity that the student on which can be done on the student. The first thing is, you can issue a book to a student, right? You can issue a book to a student. So this is an activity. What is the condition of issuing a book? The condition of issuing a book is that the student has returned all the pre-issued books, right? The student has returned all the pre-issued books. So you will issue the book only when the student has returned all the pre-issued books. Fine. So this is the activity that you want to do, first activity. And second activity is, you want to add a student. Okay, so maybe a student is not in the library, so first time he has visited and you want to give him a library card, right? So there should be something by which a student can enroll into a library, or if you say it in terms of a software or online system, let's say a student can log in into a library management system software. Got it? So very simple thing. Student has three property. A student, two behavior can be done. The two behavior or two activities can be done. The first, I'm saying behavior because it has a specific reason with respect to object oriented programming. We will come to that later, right? So two activities can be done. The first is adding a student to the library. The second is issuing a book to the student, given that he has he has returned all the pre-issued books, right? So this thing you want to do. Okay, very briefly, very crudely, you do not need to be exact, just write 3-4 lines. How will you address this problem in Python? Tell me in terms of data structure, tell me in terms of methods, function, whatever you want to use, right? Very briefly, do not go into detail. Just you can even forget about the English formation of the sentence. Just in short note, you can also write. So how will you address this problem in Python? For those of you who are not comfortable in Java, at least in the first week also, you may only write your response in Python. Fine. And yeah.
Can you tell that again a little fast, the entire thing in the short?
Simple thing, the normal thing that happens in, in library system, the simple library system, you want to add a student when he is not already a part of the library, right? A student has three properties. Any three properties you add, I just told you class, roll number, and date of birth. A student has three properties, and on the student, two activities can be done. The first one is adding himself or herself, that is the first one, and the second one is issuing a book. And issuing a book has a condition that you will only issue when you do not have any pre-issued books which you have not returned. Okay, just briefly, yeah,
Okay.
the skeleton of your solution, that's what I want. I'm more interested in the skeleton than the specifics of it.
Okay, if I write down the whole things, like approaches, that will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would take some time for you,
And
right?
brief description. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want the skeleton. I mean, when you design when you answer a question problem, you think about the skeleton, right? What I will do on a broader level. Then you go into the specifics. So I want that broader level idea.
Yeah, I cannot save the things I've written down.
Okay.
Hello.
So yeah. If you have completed, it is fine. I will wait for.
No, but I cannot submit that. There is.
You do not have to submit. It's okay. You just write on the text box
Okay.
that has been provided.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be visible from our side. You just write your response.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one is enroll, you said, Bhaskar. What is the second one you said?
Yeah, second one is mainly that issuing a book. Now you are just putting a condition that you do not have any pre-issued book that you have not returned. That's it. Simple issuing a book.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So if someone has finished writing his or her response, so here is another question to you. In Python, is there a fixed I would say, is there a constraint that once you declare the blueprint of an object, now you know the blueprint of an object is basically the class definition, right? So in Python, is it compulsory that once you define the blueprint, then you must have the object following that blueprint, or you may change one object a little bit by adding some extra behavior, by adding some extra properties. Now, what do I mean by behavior is functions, and what do I mean by properties? Any data member, right? So can you change a particular object's property and another object of same type?
Yes, there is no restriction.
Yeah. Can you say again? I could not hear you.
You can change mostly anything. There is no restriction.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to highlight this point, and I will address this again. But yeah, you can change.
This is called overriding, isn't it, sir?
It is not exactly overriding. I will come to that again. But yeah.
Okay, then you need to explain it.
Okay. Yeah, so I will just now go to the responses. Creating a dictionary with student name. Yeah, this is what I wanted actually. And in that index, putting 3 IDs. Great. If a student is not in a dictionary, new index for the student will be created. Java class can be created and then object. Can also be done in Java. Taken as an object and storing the data via the object, which would be much simpler implementation, can also be done in Python. Yeah. So here is the problem. It can also be done in Python, but the issue is Python is not very strict. Okay, so that's why people, I mean, it is easier to do Python than doing Java, but Python is not very strict. So one feature of Java that you will get to see at many places is it is quite secure. Now, secure does not mean in terms of encryption, higher standards and all, right? In web, you are sending your request which would be encrypted, not like that. Secure in terms of programming practices is what I am meaning. So if you see any language, Java is very much secure in terms of programming practices. Now there are two aspects of it. The first aspect is languages which are more at, I would say, at a higher level than Java. What do I mean when I say higher level? I mean modern languages which are, I mean, so C language is the first, I mean, it is very much close to the system. After that we have C++, right? Then we have Java, then we have other languages, and Python is quite a new language. So it abstracts away a lot of things from the programmer, and that's why it is easy to do. As Pooja was also saying, that's why it is easy to do. But as Kumar pointed out, that as you move towards this system means your computer, right? As you move towards the system, the programming languages which are closer to the system, the complexity of the program will normally increase. Now, why I am saying that Java is secure in terms of programming practices? The first thing is, comparing with Python and other higher languages than Java, Java has more restriction and fixed boundary which you cannot, I would say, which you cannot cross, right? I would discuss some boundaries now. And in terms of lower languages which are much closer to system than Java, in terms of lower languages, the benefit that you will get in Java is more secure, because again, some lower languages give you extra, I would say, mm, extra accessibility of the system which Java does not provide. For example, in C, C++, the basic thing, if you write the first difference on web, what is difference between Java and C or C++, you will get pointers. So what is pointer? Pointer is something that will allow you to directly access a memory location, and this is a real memory location on your system, right? Java also deals with memory location. Obviously, when we are talking about dynamic memory, we discussed that how it is taken from heap, right? So everything is happening, but there is a middle level which is adjusting, which is interfacing between the exact memory system, the kernel level system, and whatever program you are writing, right? So it will not allow you to do some funny tricks with the memory, right? It will not allow you to do that. So it is secure in that sense. But in C, C++, mostly you have, I mean, you can mess up the whole thing if you want, because you have access to memory locations. In Java, you will not get that access. So it is safer in that terms. Okay. Again, garbage collection is one example that we discussed, that C will not have automatic garbage collection. What that means is, if you are dynamically allocating memory, if you are taking memory from heap, I hope you all understood that. And if someone has doubt in dynamic allocation, please refer to the previous live session video where we discussed that. So when you are taking memory from heap, right? So automatically deallocating it is not a feature in C++ or Java, which are languages much closer to the system. But Java provides this. Java has automatic garbage collection. So that's why the thing that I wanted to say is, comparing it with lower languages and also higher languages, Java is somewhat a good trade-off, which would give you a more secure programming practice rather than these languages. Okay. Some restrictions again we will discuss in this course. You will see. And that's why another point, that's why I asked that question. Once you define the blueprint of an object in Python, after that also you can change the properties. I mean, you can add a value, you can add a function to that object. You can use that to do some other tricks also, to do some other functionalities also, right? Which may not have been defined in the blueprint earlier. Okay, but Java will not allow you to do this. You have to make changes in the blueprint first, and after that only you will be able to add reflect the same in the object. Okay, so these these boundaries actually help you in the long run while developing things, and also helps you in debugging the system. Okay, so in Java, if a class is defined, and all the object of that class must follow strictly the blueprint of the class. I mean, the blueprint defined by that class. Yeah. So is someone saying something? I could not hear you.
No, please go ahead. Actually,
Okay.
some background sound from my end.
Sir, if I can't change once the method is defined in a class, then what is dynamic lookup? I thought dynamic lookup will let us choose a method which is
We will go to that.
special to
We will go to that. Dynamic lookup will come into play when you go into inheritance. Okay. So it is more
Okay, sir.
pronounced when you go to inheritance. We will come to that. But what I mean is, if you have a single class and if you define an object, so by definition, a class is a blueprint of an object. Now, if you are making a house, you must follow the blueprint. Otherwise, the municipality will break your house, the one you registered with the municipality, right? But here, Java actually implements that. Python, it is not. It is dependent on the programmer, right? You can change the implementation. So this is these boundaries Java actually implements, and that's why it is helpful. Now, obviously, as someone is writing that, you will have a dictionary. Coming back to the problem, you can have a dictionary which would represent each student, right? You can even put an array, and then you can do whatever you want to do by making functions, right? You will do this thing, the activities that I discussed, adding someone else, you can do by adding in dictionary. But whether someone has issued the book and whether he has returned it or not, and I would issue it again, that is essentially a function that you would create. And depending upon the properties of the particular dictionary, you can just do a conditional check, and then you can you can issue the books by making some property change, right? Essentially that only you are doing. So what is basically happening is, you are defining a dictionary or an array and other functions which are totally independent functions, right? When you are not taking the class path, you are not taking the way in which you are sorry, the class way of doing it, class object way of doing it. When you are taking this dictionary and array way of doing it, you are keeping your properties means the class, the roll number, the number of books issued. These things are properties of a student, right? And whether to issue a book or not, to add this new student into the this dictionary, this representation of student in library, that is a behavior, that is not some property. That is a behavior, that is a, I would say, a verb, right? Property is noun. A number of books issued, what is the class? These are nouns. But adding someone, deleting someone, issuing someone, these are verbs, right? So verb is a function. You can relate it in this way. Generally, functions are verbs, and properties are variables, something like that. Or noun, variable, and properties, you can relate them together. So essentially, in Python way, where you are not using a class, we are keeping the properties and the behavior means the function that you are declaring, totally loosely coupled. They are not tightly coupled. That is, if you define a function and in which you are passing the dictionary object, the dictionary, and checking for the particular student's proper number of books issued and whatever, right? What I'm saying is, in that function, you may also pass another dictionary which may not be of student, maybe something other type, right? You can also do that. Or maybe if it's a student type but not semantically correct, you can also do that. You can add some extra property a student which is not there for other students. You can add extra methods to a student which is not there for other students. So this is something not following a specific order, not principled order, right? So this is the problem. You cannot represent concretely a specific behavior in Python. It's upon the user. You can, but it is not left as a compulsory condition. It is something that the programmer's choice is. Okay. So this thing can be done in Java in a better way, and that's why we use Java for solving object-oriented problems. Okay, so these features, these complexities will turn into feature. That's what I want to say. These complexities will turn into feature when you see a real life problem mapped in terms of objects, and then you try to map those objects in terms of your real life problem. Do that vice versa, right? So that's why we are learning. Yeah, you can just tell, let me just finish this. So that's why we are learning Java. The main intention of learning Java is to map the real life problem in terms of object oriented concepts. So we are not dealing with syntax and lot of internal Java things that that, I mean, you have to know the basic Java, otherwise you will not be able to write the code. But our motive for this course is we want you to able to map the object oriented concepts of real life problem and solve it using Java. Okay.
Sir, we will only learn the core Java.
I know that's what is important. If you
Okay.
go to advanced Java and all, then also, I mean, see, mapping the OOPS concept has most of the thing to do with core Java. Now, once you are able to map it, then the functionality is provided by advanced Java. Got my point? Functionality is at a point given by advanced Java, and that if you can map those concepts, now you can even use other languages also. There are some other languages also that also you can use. But what's important is you are able to map real life problems with object oriented concepts. Okay, because object oriented way of solving a real life problem is much easier because you are going in a bottom up manner. So let's why I'm saying bottom up manner for those who are not understanding that. So what was your thinking process when you wrote this line, that creating a dictionary of student and then putting, I mean, creating functions and then passing those dictionary into the function? So here you are setting up the infrastructure first. You are not considering a student first. You are considering the methods,
the complexity.
The complexity. Exactly.
Logical complexity.
Logical complexity you are considering. You are not considering, okay, there is one student who has some specific property, another student must also follow the same property. This is not your first thinking process. But if you think in terms of class, it would be the first thing that you would do. What is the definition, the blueprint of the class? So this is one student. One class means the definition of the properties and the behavior a student can do. After that, I'm thinking about what is the logic, what is the complexity, what is the logic of making. I mean, after that, I'm going to the functions. If I state it exactly, when you are thinking about class, you are going to the functions later. You are thinking about the object first. When you are thinking in terms of Python's dictionary, you are thinking about the function and the logic first, then you are moving into the student, right? So therefore, the Python approach of not using a class is something that we call the top-down approach. You're moving from functions and methodology and logic to the student, to the object. And in Java, you are moving from the student, the object, to the methodology, to the functions. So it's a bottom.
We are abstracting more.
We are abstracting more. Yeah. So it is always better if you give some thinking time to it, you will see it is always better to move in a bottom-up manner whenever you are trying to solve a real-life problem, because you get that particular entity first. After that, you will solve problems with that entity, but you need to have an entity first. Okay. So I don't know how much I could communicate the idea that I want to. You can also read some good blogs on the web and good books, but please have a clear idea why Java, and not only Java, why object-oriented programming is important, why we are dealing with object-oriented programming in the first place. Simply writing print in Python was much easier than writing system.printout.println in Java. So why we are going to Java? Okay, so this is important. Okay, read some blogs also. I don't think in this short 15 minutes talk it would be clear, but clear your idea of why we are choosing OOPS. Yeah, so these are more specific things. The basic idea I think I could communicate. See, here you're defining functions, right? Here you are defining a class. And okay, so that was the responses. See, someone also wrote, I don't know, you wrote it afterwards or yeah, you wrote it before. Bottom-up approach and top-down approach.
Yes, sir, I have.
Oh, you have written, great. Yeah. So this is actually the very important point of it, and this is how it works. In Java, you are moving from objects to methodology, objects to complexity. In Python, you are moving from complexities and methodologies in terms of real programming. I mean the functions. You are moving from function to data. And in Java, you are moving, not only Java, in OOPS, you are moving from data to methodology, data to functions. Okay. Okay, so on the similar grounds, these all are the main idea that I wanted to communicate is there. So I will stop this as of now. Now we will move to the questions. Okay, so let's address the doubts that we got and then we will move to the assignment question. So first thing, I think Kumar asked that use of static in main and public in class, public in main, and Pooja as the skeleton of the program. So I think discussing about the skeleton would clear all this. Okay, so one more thing. In today's session, I am using an IDE called Eclipse to do the Java code. I will show you how to, I mean, once after you download this Eclipse, I mean, it is available on the web. You can do it on Eclipse also. You can do it on, I mean, the way it is indicated, right? By using Notepad, you can do that. We will also do some replit sessions in this course. Okay, no issues in that. You can do whatever you want as long as it is Java. So I will use in today's session, I would use the Eclipse IDE. Okay, so basically, how do you start with Eclipse? So forget this, it's not there. So you first go to this Java project, click over here, right? Go to Java project. You can give any project name. So I am giving live sessions. Okay, and click on finish. So you see that there is one live session project created for you. Now under this live session, you have JRE system libraries. Don't go into that. This is something the system is dealing with. So go to this source. Now obviously in source you have nothing. So let's do our first program. In order to create your first program, what you will do is do a right click on the source. Okay, click on new, and then go to class. Okay, right click on source, new, and class. Yeah, so okay, so this is one thing that I want to say. Just a second. Yeah, I would give it name, say test. So this name is the, I mean, the name of the class that you are adding, and this would be a public class. Okay, this would be a public class. Now remember, when you did it in Notepad, you saved the name of the file with that class name, right? So if it is test1, then it should be test1.java. So here you are doing in IDE, so you do not have to do that explicitly. But your program name, this file name, here you are setting to test1. So the public class that you will have, it should be test1 compulsory. You cannot write public something else, the public fun class, and it would give you an error. So the public class should be test1 only. Okay, so this thing which is coming by after I added this thing, we will ignore it as of now. So this package, we will discuss this concept of package in later week, but till then we will ignore that. Yeah, so this is your public class test1. Now in Java, as so I'm discussing the skeletons. So in Java, we all know that everything should be a part of a class, right? It is, you cannot write something which is out of the class. Each and everything should be a part of some class. Therefore, it is our first class, and I would create the main method. Now, Omar was asking about the idea of main method. See, in Python, we do not have a specific entry point to a program. We can start a program and we can also have a main method. That is fine. But in order to have a main method, you are actually explicitly mentioning that if the program path, right, you are checking that path. If it is class, I mean, sorry, if it is main, then only you run something like you are doing that underscore main by running that if condition, right? So there is no specific entry point to a Python program, but in C, C++, these languages, there is a specific entry point. Now, what do we mean by a specific entry point? Specific entry point means the compiler will start its execution from that function. That's it, nothing more. So whatever you write above it means, I mean, in the page above it, right? So if you write something above it and write something below it, that doesn't matter. What it will do is it will simply go to the entry point function, and then only it will start execution. So that is the simple entry point meaning. Now, if you say why we do entry point function like main in Java and languages like C, C++, and why it is not in Python. That is, I mean, I don't have a very good answer to that, but mostly it's a choice. If it has some deeper aspect of it, then I think I'm unaware of it. If someone has knowledge about it, then it is fine. But for me, it is just a choice.
In C++, I mean, except the main, you can call the other function. I mean, if you look into the MFC application, so initialization is the functions where it is starting, and later somewhere it is calling the main. Okay, but main has to call over there. But you can call the any function before main call in C++. Java, I don't know.
Okay, so the compiler will go to that other function that you're talking about?
Yes, I tested.
Okay, so any changes need to be made to the compiler for that?
Suppose no changes is required. Suppose you have a main, right? And before main, if you declare one global variable and call any function, that will be called first, and then it will come into the main.
I define a global variable and I call a function.
Yes, any functions of this program. Okay. Even you can call the printf and use the print there in C++.
Is it calling? So what my understanding is, we can define it later and give the prototype, but if give the prototype at top and define the function at after
suppose you have a main, right? And
yeah.
Another two functions, x and y, right?
Okay.
So int x, another global variable is z equal to function x. So if function returns something, there will be no problem, but function should not be void. There will be no problem.
Okay, the entry point is not, it may not be main, that's what you mean, right? It may go
no, I mean, my point is that you can call the other function before the main call, that I am saying, but that function need to return some value.
Okay, so yeah, we will see to that, but okay, I got the point. I will again see it.
I have one question here. Suppose if there's something is like that object, and I'm calling the object first, how computer will know that I'm calling inside object what? Because every method is inside the object. So suppose
no, it's not object, right? It is a class.
Yeah, so class later we take as a defined as the one of the object. So even if I'm calling the class, so is that order does matter, that which method is written first?
See, I'm telling when you are writing a class now, when I'm writing this, so let's suppose forget about this class test. I'm going to that later. Suppose I define a class X over here, right, and define something, whatever. I will just write something. So here is one variable. So let's do a real allocation only. There is a variable, and let's suppose here is the function. Fine, whatever. Something is written here. So there is a function. Now this whole thing is not allocated any memory after this stage is completed. So let's suppose even if I compile this code and run this code, this will be only in the, I think I discussed in that session that you have code section, I mean that process, right? How a program is converted into a process in memory, in RAM. So you have a code, you have global section, the data segment, you have heap and stack segment. So there this class would be there as a part of only the text code segment, right? It would not be effectively converted into any memory location or anything unless and until you declare an object. When you declare an object of this class, then only it would be actually reflected or represented in memory as an object. So class is basically a blueprint. That's why I was using the term blueprint. It is not something which is there in memory. When you create the object's blueprint is the class. So the object must strictly follow the blueprint, and that object has been allocated in the memory. Class does not take any memory. So that is one point. So, and now your that doubt. See, when we are defining this public class now, each program must have only one public class. We will also discuss this again. So each program must have only one public class. Now, if you are not writing anything before a class, then it is Java has something what we call default type. Now public is there. We will also discuss this later again. So these are called access modifier, public, private, default, protected. Many things are there. We will discuss them. Okay. So if I am not writing anything before a class, by default it is the default type. Got my point? We call it the default type. So it's here it will give you error because it is, I mean, it is implicit, but yeah, it is the default type, right? So, but one program must have only one public class. Okay. Yeah. You can always use multiple public class written in different program into one particular program. You can combine the multiple public classes from different program. That is there. We will discuss that in the next week again. But as of now, just understand a single program will have only one public class. Now, if it has only one public class, in that public class, your main method is there, right? And the compiler has been configured to only enter the program through the main method. Got my point? So when you're writing public static void main, the compiler will only enter the program through this main method, right? So there is no problem. After you enter into the main method, whatever you want to do, you can do. So that's why we call it entry point. Right. So you are saying how it will know which object or how it will know which class. It is more towards the public class in which the main method is there. The program or the compiler would enter into the main method. Right. Is it clear, Kumar?
Yes, kind of.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, sir.
So did you want to ask something? Okay, anyways. So this is how it works actually.
Yeah. We'll ask later.
Okay. Okay. So this was the code that sir discussed. So right. So your compiler is programmed to start from the enter the program from the main method. So it will come to the public class inside this main, I mean the main method inside this public class, and it would start executing whatever is there. So line number 8 would be the first line that the compiler would execute. Okay. Now let's come to the structure of the program. As we discussed, everything should be there as a part of a class in Java. So that's why we are defining the main method itself inside a class. Okay, so in other programming languages where main method is there, like C, C++, you may have the main method outside any class or anything. You can have it in the global region, no issues. But here you need to enclose that in a class. So I'm enclosing that in a class. Now after that we are coming to public. So what is this word public? Public means I just said that we will again discuss public, private, protected, default again in later weeks. But just widely speaking, or not widely, from a very crude perspective, public is something which would have the largest access scope, that you can access something defined as public from anywhere else. It would not have any restriction, right? Now, what are the restriction? Unless and until you go to private and protected and default, you would not understand what are the restriction. So we will go to that later. But as of now, understand that public is something which would not have any restriction, and that's why you are giving the main method as public, so that the compiler can enter into the main method without any restriction. Okay, once we go to the other things, it would be clear. After that, static, right? Now, static means, so in order to understand that, let us define another class. So I'm defining another class, right? Student. Okay. Now student may have his name. Obviously, his name would be there. So string name. Okay, and class. So let us say int class. These are the two properties. Also, class is a sorry, data keyword. I cannot use class directly. So let's say student class. Yeah. So these two are properties of the student. Okay. Now let us suppose, let us think of a property which may not be specific to each student, but specific to a sorry, not specific, but a property of the students as a group, right? Understood my point? it is a property not specific to each student, but it represents the student, all the student as a group. It means, yeah, it is something which is not very individual, but rather a property of the group of the students. So that kind of thing you want to have. So let's think of something like that. If someone has any idea, they can also suggest.
Course, maybe.
Course, yeah.
But the student class also is common to all the students in a particular class.
No, the student, I did not get you. What did you say?
The student class, if he's been studying in 6th standard, it's common to all the students who are part of that 6th standard. So it can be a common class, which you have already assigned as int.
See, the issue is if you make this student class, I mean common, that means you can only have that student of that particular class only. Got my point?
Okay, you mean it's for the entire school, something like that,
Yeah,
which is common to all the students of a particular school like that.
That depends on the domain you are talking about. So if I am talking about students of a particular class, then it is totally fine to take it as a common property. But if I'm talking about students of the whole school, then I don't think class is a property which is common, right? So something. So let us take for ease of understanding. So for ease of understanding, let us take something. Let us consider the students of a particular class only. Okay. So let us consider students of a particular class. Only particular class we are considering. So date of birth would be a individual property of student. So DOB, right? But the student class, only considering the fact, understand this use case is very important, very properly, because otherwise the meaning is destroyed. So here we are considering student of a particular class only. Okay. So student.
Sir,
Yeah.
can we have school name itself, as it will be common for all classes?
School name you can have, sorry, school name you can have. If we have common, then yeah, school name is good choice. Yeah, school name
Date of admission.
Date of admission is something again which is okay. But date of admission may change, right? It may not be same. I mean, on a single day, admission may not happen. For a particular class, admission may happen.
Yeah, that is true. But for each and every student must have a date of admission, right?
Yeah, that is specific, right? I'm searching for something which is representative of the group, not specific. So string date of birth, name, and are something which are specific to a particular student.
Gender can be like male or female. You can differentiate.
Yeah, good. Yeah, gender is something which is, I mean, you can have it, right? But let's take this example only, which we are considering in a single class. So let us take, you define something, you want to have the student class, and we are considering student of the same class. So in that situation, you can define this property as static. So what do we mean by that when we are defining something as static? So this is just one example. There are thousands of examples and there are thousands of use cases of it, but I just want to convey the meaning. So when you declare an object, now how we declare an object, what is the structure? We will go to that again, but just assume that this is the definition of an object. That when you define an object, student says equal to student. Okay. So this is the way how you define an object. What is object? Oh, sorry, I did not give. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. So this is how you define an object. So once you are defining an object, then only your class is getting represented, right? So this object will follow the blueprint defined by the class, and it would represent the class. Now this object S represent one single student in real life. Okay, this S, you are seeing that, right? That object, that is representation of a single student in real life. Okay, so the name and date of birth for this S is specific. It may be Rahul or whatever, and date of birth is specific, but the class we discussed, it is common, right? So whatever methods you define over here, right? Whatever you define, so that so those methods, right? Void whatever. any specific functionality that you want to implement. Okay? So those methods are something which are property of each student. But the student class is not property of each student. It is something which is common to all of the students. Now someone can modify it and it would also be reflected. Right?
Okay, sir. Yeah, student class is for all student. The same student class will be the same
So,
value. Yeah.
exactly. So someone changes it, it changes for others also. Okay, get that point.
So
So
can we say that means any attribute which will not change throughout our program
that is not correct.
will be static?
No, that is not correct.
No, static will be changed, but I mean it is same value for each and every object of the student.
Exactly. Okay. So if you change see, constant means something which will never change once you assign something to it. So that is what constant means. But here the main idea that I focused was that you want to have something which is not very specific to each student. Now student as one object means it is representing one student, right? So he should be in a single class, and we discussed that our domain is a single class, right? So all students should be property of the all students should be in that class only. Now when it can change, it would change for all students, something like that. Got my point?
So one clarification, sir.
Yeah.
It is the same as that in the Python we define the class variable before that init, which is the class variable in the whenever we define a class in the Python.
Yeah.
We there is a two way of define the attributes. One is inside the init function, which is the property of each object, and one is outside of init, which is the property of the entire class.
Exactly. Exactly.
So here is that it is the same way which I am defining in the student class.
Yeah.
No, init one will init one.
Yeah, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah,
So,
init declaration will be not used over here. I mean, it is not allowed.
No. What he says, the meaning of it. He says the
meaning
semantics
of his system. Yes,
semantics.
So in this question, in this program, the line number 6, wherever you have defined the static student class, this is the class variable in the Python, exact same. No?
This is the same thing. This is the same thing that you said, that it is not object dependent. All static variables or static property and behavior are not object. You can have a static method also, right? So these are not object dependent. You are correct. Whatever you said, that is the semantics of it. This is how you define it in Java, and that is how you define in Python. That's it.
So we can say whenever we write the static, it's become the global variable or that class variable, the entire class.
Global is something I would not use, because there are other meaning of global. Class variable, I mean, yeah, meaning you can say like that. Yeah. Okay.
So a string name and a string date of birth, this is the individual property.
This is individual property. This will depend on each object and vary with respect to each object. I mean, with respect to each student. Yeah.
So let's convert this entire program in the Python. So if I will write, then a string name and the date of birth will come inside the init variable, and the static int will come inside the class variable.
Yeah, you can design your code like that.
Okay, done.
Okay.
Clear.
Depending upon the complexity you are adding, there can be differences, but yeah, as of now, whatever is there, you can do like that. Something like that is okay, I think.
Okay, that's I wanted to be clear.
Yeah. So the main idea is it is not constant. As someone said, it is not constant. It is common to all the object or all the students, right? It may change, but it will change for everyone. That's
it is shareable among class object.
Yeah. So that is the meaning of static. So if you want to have a representation of something like that, it is static. Okay. So generally you use static, and let us differentiate it from another aspect. So suppose what should we remain constant? School name, right? Okay. So school name. So school name is something that would remain constant, right? You can move from one class to another, but assuming you are not leaving the school, so you are passing from one class to another. So assuming no one is failing and assuming you are not leaving. So with these two ideas in mind, what we can do is each student, all the students together, they will pass, since our assumption is no one is failing. So all students will pass and they will move to a new class. but they are not leaving the school. So the school is same. The school will always remain same in our domain, right? In our whatever in our discussion. So we can write the school as something which is constant. Got the idea? School is something which would remain constant and it would not change for a single student. So in order to define constants which will never change, we will use the keyword final. Okay, so this is the difference. Final string school name. Okay. Oh, sorry. What is the error? Okay, okay, sorry. One more thing I did not initialize. So let's say XYZ. So see, this is a final variable, right? That is, it will never change. It would always remain constant, as you were saying, throughout the code. It would be invariant. Now, since it is invariant, it would never change. That means you should assign something to it, right? Since it is not changed, it will not be changed. Okay, therefore you assign something. So final string school name is XYZ school. So this will remain constant even the students move from one class to another. But static is not constant. This is something that will change for the whole set of students. They all will move from one class to another and it will change for all the students together. Okay. But date of birth and name is something which would depend for each student, which would vary for each student, right? Which would vary for each object. An object here means the student. That means it would vary for each student. So this is static, final, and normal variable. This was the distinction between them in terms of real life example. Is it clear? Any doubt in this? Main method, I will come to that again. What is system.out and all? We will come to that again. But this basic static
Here we are using final, means I cannot change this value anytime.
You cannot change. That was the idea, right? Someone said that if it is constant, so I wanted to distinguish that. That's why.
So
Here
I can also define constant, right?
This is where we defined a constant, right? Final is a constant. When you are writing final, it is a constant in front of a variable. Now, final has other works also. We will discuss that. But if you are writing it in front of a variable declaration, that is essentially a constant. Nothing.
Okay, not the const keyword, right?
Not the const keyword. Here we use final. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Pooja, did you ask about that? If it is constant, then it would be static.
Yes, I confused it with the constant thing, but you said.
So is it clear now then?
Yeah, now I understand.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So since we are on this topic, I would just also mention another thing. So void fun, I will just change it to something which is meaningful. So what should I say? Pass. Okay, pass or promotion. Is promoted. Okay, so I know that for while discussing the concept of static and final, we had one constraint that let us suppose all the students are passing, but that was to just communicate the idea. So now assume that all students are not passing. Someone may pass and someone may fail. Forget about static and final, all this thing. Yeah. Suppose there is another method which is void is promoted, right? Which would give you, and when I'm not writing anything in front of void, that means it is by default, something called default. Oh. Okay, so yeah, so this default, I cannot write it. It would give an error because it is by default. I don't know, I'm confusing the word, but it is basically default. But you can also write it public, no issues. There is some access specification which will change, and we will come to that later. You can ignore that part as of now. Okay, so what's important is public void is promoted is a method, right, which would decide whether maybe there is some implementation defined in it that I'm not going into. So maybe something called marks is there, right? You put some variable called total marks in total marks, and sorry, right? You can have total marks for each student, and depending upon total marks, you can do some condition. Total marks greater than 50. Right, you can just write some if statement, whatever. What I mean is, you can also have a variable called
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
yeah.
But one stark difference from Python I'm observing is
Yeah,
I don't have to pass the self for all the methods.
You do not have to pass this self. We will discuss something called this, then we will get to that.
Okay. Okay.
So there is something
Sure.
called this THIS. We will discuss that.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so my indentation is correct. Yeah, even if in Java we do not need to have a proper indentation because we are using these curly braces, but always try to indent it properly. Okay, so see, this is just a simple implementation that I wrote. You can write anything that you want. That if total marks is greater than 50, then is passed. This, what I mean is, what is more important is that there is something called is promoted. Now my question is this method a property of each student, or whether this method is property of the group of students?
It's an instance variable. I mean, every variable.
I'm
Okay.
asking. I'm just asking about the logic. Huh? Don't. So suppose there is nothing written. My question. I mean, don't go by the code that I have written. Just tell me whether is promoted word, does it sound the property of a student, or does it sound the property of the group of students?
One student.
No, one student.
One student, correct? Because a
Yeah.
single student may be promoted, he may get failed, and that is an individual property.
Yeah.
So sorry, not individual property, individual behavior. Properties are variables. So this is the terminology that we use in object-oriented programming. We call object property means the object variables, these things. And we called objects behavior means the functions that we define on that object. Okay. Now is promoted is something which is dependent on each student, each object. Okay. So therefore we will not write static in front of is promoted. This method has to do this method will work on each student. It is a property of individual student. But let us assume you need to have another kind of method. Let me think of something which is the property of again a group of students. Which is, sorry, not property, a behavior of group of students.
So take get to class then.
If they
right? The static int to class, right? So we can write public get to class, public int to class.
2 plus, I'm not getting.
No, stu underscore class. I'm sorry.
2.
No. If I write down the static function, static int, and then the stu class value gets to class. Okay, please write down static.
Yeah, static is 2 plus. I'm not getting it.
Static int. That's stu class, right? stu underscore class, right? That value can access.
stu underscore
get stu class, right? Sir, if I take these values to class, there is a member, right? stu underscore class.
Oh, class. I'm just hearing plus. Sorry.
No. Actually,
yeah. I thought you were telling
I'm
a function name. Okay.
Yeah. If I declare the function gets to class, then this value will return, right? So same static function can declare.
Gets to class. Acha. Get to class. Okay.
I'm sorry, my voice is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, your headphone is.
No, not headphone. Actually, I got cold.
So okay. Sorry. So get well soon. Okay. So yeah. This is good. Thank you for that. Yeah. So see, what did I miss over here? What is this method must? Okay, I wrote int. I'm not returning anything. So let's not return anything, keep it void. So see, so yeah, thank you for that. The idea is you have something called student class, right, which would be common to all the students. So gets to class is basically a method which will take, so suppose as a programmer you have configured this program, and after 3 years you are coming, right, and you want to see that all the students are in which class. So initially maybe they were in 1 or 2, whatever. So after 3 years they would be in, if it was 2, then they would be now in 5, right? So you want to see that what is the value of the variable student class, right? I mean stu class, that one. So you can get that one. Now see, this is something which is not a property of a behavior that would be required for each student, right? Okay, so behavior required for each student, assuming, going back to our initial convention that no one is failing and all students are passing together. That means if a single student who is in class 5, if I have that information that one student is in class 5, that means all the students are in class 5. Okay, assuming that no one is failing, if we have that convention, okay, that assumption. So
But
if
I
I
have, sorry,
tell Kumar.
sorry, can I interrupt?
Yeah, say.
Okay. So it is not a property of individual student.
That is why we wrote a static.
Yes, yes, sir. But it is also not a property of all student simultaneously. No, it's look like the property of a bunch of the students.
No. See, that's why I said our assumption is no one is failing.
Pardon, sir. For example, I'm taking one college, one entire the school, no, and so entire schools the class property should valid for the all the school, like the school name. But whenever we talk about the classes, then maybe there will be 10 groups in that entire. So bunch of the students will have the second class with some third class. So how to think for that?
Yeah. Kumar, so see,
My
in
point
this,
was this.
I understand. In this simple example, we are only talking about a particular set of students, who are only there in that school. The school is
So
constant, the set of student is constant, just they will promote from one class to another, how to represent. Once you
okay,
move to these different groups, right,
yeah.
it is easy to configure a single student, it is easy to configure a group of students, but when you have multiple groups, right, so then what
Yes.
to do? In order to discuss that, we have to move into further Java, right? We cannot do that.
So we can understand
Right now our assumption is one school is there in which 10 students, maybe,
one group is there.
yeah, one group
Suppose
of student is there, and they are all in same class, and all are
okay,
passing together.
now it's concept clear.
Clear? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Suppose take that example. It is in a starting, all is in the fifth class.
yeah, all are there in 5th class. So that is our assumption. Okay.
Okay.
So please remind me this examples. I just came up with it after joining this session. So that's why I'm asking all of you to interact and tell me also. That would be good. So yeah, so please remind me this example when we discuss after inheritance. So then I would tell that what to do in order to map that question that you asked. If there are multiple groups of students, then what to do, right? So we'll discuss particularly this example only. Then fine. Okay.
Yes, I will show.
Yeah. So just spoiler alert to that. So you have to define another class, and then you have to use the object of that class as a representative of this class. I will not say anything else. Okay. So if you want to think about it, go ahead. But we will not discuss it in the session as of now. So yeah. So this is static void get student class. The idea is since all students are passing together, and that's why it is not a behavioral aspect of each student, but rather a behavioral aspect of all the students. So that's why we are making it static. So if I say student, now my question is, since it is not the behavioral aspect of each student, it means the get student class method, this method that I defined. So since this is not behavioral aspect of each student, also known as each object, since it is not the behavioral property of each object, rather the property of the whole class itself. Okay. Do I need each object to call this method? It is meaningless, right? I mean, it is not required because all the objects will fetch you the same result. all the objects will fetch you the same result, because this is not a property of each object, rather the property of the group. So since this is the property of group, if you define a method static, it is not required to execute that method using an object. So again, we will go to that, but in order to execute a method which is there in a class, you have to use the object, right? So suppose if I have a method like is promoted, which was a property of each student, right? So in order to run this method, what I have to do, I have to write s dot is promoted, right? I have to write this because is promoted is a property of object, and therefore only with respect to the student who is represented by the object s, whether he or she is promoted is required, is what I want to see. That's why I am writing s dot is promoted, right? So whether the student s is promoted or not. But since get student class is not like that, so I can and it is a property of the group rather a property of the class, I can directly access the static method by the class name itself. So I will write something like student dot get student class. Okay, so this syntax is allowing, right? So if I write student dot is promoted, it will give you an error. See, it's giving you an error. Oh, promoted. To say cannot make a static reference to a non-static method is promoted. So this is the language of Java, but you should always under all the errors that you will get in the technical language, right? But this logical thing you should be clear with, right? This oops concept. Why? Because this promoted is a property of object, is a property of each student, not the property of the whole group. Okay, fine. So one tricky thing is that since we did it in the, I mean, in a very short time, I mean, in the run time only, I would say. So that's why we consider two different assumptions. The first assumption is all students are getting promoted together while discussing the static behavior. And the second assumption is while discussing this is promoted, that let us assume that all students are not getting promoted together. So don't confuse. We are considering two different assumptions while discussing two different concepts just in order to communicate it with you. Okay, fine. Okay, any doubt in that? Static final, static member, static method?
No,
Okay.
sir.
Okay,
Actually, Python also work the same way here.
Yeah. Okay.
Line number 26 and 27 you have written.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I will come back to the thing that sir discussed. So this is the main method. Now this is argument that you will get from command line. We discussed that earlier also. If someone has doubt, you can go to the previous session. What are command line argument and why are they used? What is the advantage of them? All those things I think we discussed. After that, it is system.out.println Java, right? Now what is system? Particularly this statement, I think someone is having, many people are having doubt. So see, forget about this statement as of now. How did we call the is promoted method? After defining an object. After defining an object, so this was your object, right? This is the syntax of declaring an object. You give the class name, then you write one variable name. After that, you write new class name again. Okay. So see, in that while discussing that process and all those things, I discussed that this part, the right hand side of equal to, this is what is actually allocating the memory in the heap, right? I discussed that. So this part, the right hand side of equal to, is what allocating the memory in the heap actually, and this student s is basically a reference to that memory. So now up till now I was referring to s as the object, but more technically correct would be object is something which is allocated in the, I mean, sorry, not allocated. Object is basically the memory which is allocated. It is not the name. The s which I am using it is simply a handler to access that memory which is allocated, right? To access the object. So the memory is the object. You call the memory itself the object. And in order to access that memory, aka object, you are using a variable. that variable is actually referring to that object, and that's why we call this variable as a reference variable, right? So S here is a reference variable which is referring to the memory location, which is actually the object. The memory location is the object. Fine. Okay. Now, so how I am calling a method of the class, which is a property of the, property of each student, individual property. The way is to reference variable dot function name, right? S dot function name. This is how we call the method. So here now coming to system dot out. Here just consider system dot out, this part. So system, is it an object? What do you think? Is this an object? Did I define system anywhere?
It should be class.
It is a class, but I'm writing dot out, right? So assuming you created the, so let us consider another example. So I can write S dot, just a second, I can write S dot total marks.
Sir, here system is a object or an object, and it
The
is
system
declared
is a
somewhere.
package.
It's like a class.
System is a package. Out is the object, and
Package we
println
have
is
not
the.
gone yet, right? We have not gone into packages as of now. Okay, so I will come to that. So see first this thing, that line number 27, observe that we are writing S dot total marks. So I can access the class variable also, sorry, class, not the class variable, the instance variable also, that is the total marks is passed these values, right, which are specific to each student. So I can access that by reference name dot that property name. I can access like that. So you see that out is definitely not a function because we are not calling it like this brackets. So it is not function. So it can be a property, right? Like this, a variable, total marks, right? So you are writing S dot total marks. So here you can write out maybe something like that. So out is basically a variable, a property. But before out, we are writing system. How did we call the get student class method? Or rather say, how will I access this variable? Can someone tell me the code? The static int variable, can someone tell me in this main method, how will I access that?
Student.stu class.
Just a second. I'm asking the total marks, right? Which one did I ask?
No, you asked about stu underscore class.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I asked about stu underscore class.
As it is static, we should be using student.stu underscore class.
Very good. As it is static, we should be using student.stu underscore class. Very good. Right? Okay, so whatever. What was the type?
It is string.
Integer.
Sorry, it is integer.
Integer, right? So 7. So let us say something like this. So it's not an error. So since this is static, since this is a property of the class, I'm writing student.stu underscore class. Now directly compare it with the system dot out. You can see that if you directly compare over here, we can get that system is basically a class.
Yes.
Out is basically a property of that class. Object, is it object? Forget about object. Did I discuss is it is an object? It is a property. You don't know whether it is an object or not, we will come to that. But before going to that, just tell me, out is basically from this understanding, from these two lines. Out is basically a property, which a variable defined inside that class, right? Like student class, right? Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, so out is a property which is defined inside the system class. It's a variable. But see, we are directly accessing out. We are not defining any object of system class. We are directly accessing out with the system class name. So that means out is a property inside the system class, and also it is static.
Println then?
Yeah, we come to that. I'll come to that. So till now, what we have learned, system is a class, out is a static variable defined inside system class. Up till this, right? Just like student class, STU class, I mean this variable. Now coming to STU class, we can see the definition over here. It is a integer variable, right? But my question is, can I have an object itself as a property of another class? Object of one class as a property of another class. So we can have that. Okay. So we can have something like This is possible. Now, why I write object is, these are general trivia. We will come to this later also. Object is the superclass of all classes in Java. Whatever classes is there, whatever you create and whatever is already there, object is the superclass of all classes. Okay, it would be that one top single point which is the superclass of everything. I mean every class. So object is basically a class, right? What is object is not important, but assume object, not assume, object is basically a class. You can see that I defined a reference of object class inside the student class as a member, right? As a member, I can do that. So you can have reference variable or of one class as a member of another class. That is okay. That is allowed. So out is basically, now we will come to that. Out is basically an object or not object, a reference variable of the class print stream. Just click over, sorry, out is basically, yeah, a print stream class is there, not system class. So there are two classes, system class. So it is something like this. You can compare this student as the system class in our example, and object as the print stream class in our example, and it is as out, and O as out in our example. Got my point? So let me reduce this gap for your easy reference. Yeah. So system is something like student. Out is something like, just I will make one change. Yeah. Out is something like sorry, O. This O over here. Out is something like O over here, right? And object, this object class is something like the, if I click on it, you can see print stream. Print stream is coming. So it is something like the print stream class. Print stream is a class, another class. So out is an object, reference of print stream class, which is placed as a static member inside the system class. That's it. Fine.
So here the student class is not an object, right?
Class is never an object. Class is just the
No,
blueprint.
this static int student class I'm asking. Line number 7.
Line number 7.
This stu underscore class, is it an object?
No. Static int just so see, Java has the primitive data types in Java, like integer, string, not string actually, string is something else also. Float,
No,
whatever.
This I'm asking just about this stu underscore class. Is this an object?
No, this is not an object. There's a primitive type, right?
Okay, so this static you can use for object also and for primitive data type also.
See, forget about object. So I discussed static in two respects, right? The first one is using data member. Second one is using member functions.
Yes.
Right? So just keep that in mind. Now, data member can be object. That is a separate story totally. You can define an object as a data member, and since a data member can be static, therefore indirectly the object is also static. So that is a separate thing. Okay. Don't confuse static with object. Okay, object can be a data member. Now static can be associated with a data member or a member function. Data member means these variables. Okay, got it?
Sir, I have a question here.
Yeah.
What is the benefit of placing one object as an attribute of another class opposed to placing it as a method inside another class?
Opposed to method means, how will you place an object as a method?
I mean, there is no way of doing that. Okay.
Let me just disclose that thing, since we are already at that point and I have that good example. So Kumar was telling about that thing, right? How will you have multiple groups if you have different groups of students who are passing separately, right? And I mean, not a single group who will pass together, but class 4 is there one group, class 3 is there another group, and the school is something which is enclosing all the classes, right? Something like that. How will you do? So I told that you need to have another class and you need to have a reference variable which would be a member of the class that you are talking. So if I give that example, then you see why that is required. So I can have a class which would be school. I'm not going into the description of that, right? And I can have another class which would be what was that, student, right? All the details pertinent to a particular student, right? I will use an object of class student over here as the type. Now see, once I define a, sorry, one mistake I did, this should not be school actually. Just a second, or we can make it class, that would be better. Yeah, this is better. So this is what I was talking about. You can define a class, right? And since we are considering in this particular student example that they all belong to a single class, together they will change, right? So all the details you can put over here inside this class, and you can have class itself, one particular instance of the class itself as a property of the school class, right? Got my point? Let me just change this class. It's not correct to use the same name as any keyword, so I would just write it as what should I write? Student class,
Classes.
and whatever you just, I'm just changing the name. Do
Grade.
not use, yeah. Standard is also fine, you can write standard, anything. Okay, so my idea is once you define this, right, you can have multiple classes as different objects, which would be just a property of the school, and then you can have, it's something like nesting, you are just nesting something. Got the idea? What I want to say? I think
Yes. Yes. This just adds a whole new world of complexity,
a
but
whole new
that's
world,
okay.
and also a whole new world of possibility, right? You can manage different groups of people, right, with respect
Yes, true.
by managing a single object. Here
True,
each
true.
object means a class itself, and inside that each object means, I mean each class object means multiple students. So you can have two levels, right, of two levels of object access, and upon depending upon that you can manage a class, and depending upon when you move into a classes object you can manage its student. So this is the benefit of object oriented programming. You can just mix and play with this thing and you will get the multiple structures of actually viewing the real world data in terms of programming. Okay, yeah,
It's look like that hierarchical tree.
it's hierarchical only, it's hierarchical only, you just have to plan it, and if you mess it up by nesting then you will run into problems. So we will discuss all those issues later also. Yeah, the idea what I was communicating is that you can have out, I mean you can, here you can have, just remove all this, it's creating confusion. These concepts are clear, so I'm just deleting all these things. Just consider this thing. Yeah, remove this is promoted and all. Oh, I removed the student class also, right? Yeah. Yeah, so static, Pooja, I think she asked that. Static has nothing to do with object, huh? It has to do with data member and member function. Now, a data member can be an object, that is something else. Right? Okay. Yeah, so you can directly relate this, that out is something like O that I discussed, and out is basically a static reference variable of the print stream class. So you can see, I think it's coming on the screen. Print stream is there, right? Print stream is something that a class is there which is defined inside internally inside Java. You can see java.lang and all, we will come to those things later. But yeah, print stream is a class. Out is a reference of that class, which is a static member of the system class. Okay, and obviously println is a method which is defined inside print stream. That's why you are using this object to access that method. So it's one level of nesting of objects that we discussed. If you are confused with this explanation, please repeat. Please see this re-recording. I mean, please, yeah, watch through the recording. I think it would be clear. Okay. So system, I will just repeat once again. System is a class. Out is a object. I mean, sorry, not object. A reference of the print stream class, which is internally made, which is something else, right? Out is a reference of the print stream class. Now that reference of the print stream class out is present as a static member of the system class, static member of the system class, just like this, just like I have O as a static member of student class, but it is an object of object class itself. Okay. And println is a method which is defined inside the print stream class, and that's why we are using the object out of print stream class to access the println method. That's it. Okay. So we not only discuss this println use, but also the structure of Java, how you make objects like this and how you have one level of nesting that would help in designing this.
Would you please repeat this system.out.println?
I think it would be good if you see the.
Actually, I got disconnected automatically.
Acha, so yeah, I'm repeating. Okay, so I'm just tell shortly. So system is a class. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Out is an object of the print stream class. Print stream is there. Print stream is one class is there. Print stream class. Out is an object of that class. Okay, not object. I am saying whenever I say object, generally I mean reference, because it should be technically it should be reference. So yeah, so it is a reference of the print stream class, but it is present inside the system class as a static member, just like we have this. Okay, so O is a object or reference of the object class, but it is present inside student class as a static member of the student class.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so that and println is just a method which is defined inside print stream class, and you are using this out as an object to access this println method. That's it. Got
Thank
it?
you. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Okay, fine. So this was the basic architecture, and not just the basic. I think we discussed one level of nesting of object also. So, but the meaning of that nesting of that object, we will come to that later also. This is something called has a relation in Java. Now, don't just be overwhelmed by these terms. We will come to that. You can also read. But yeah, we will come to that. But the basic skeleton, I think, is it clear? If someone has doubt in that, you may ask it. Or any doubt if you have in practice. I think in the previous day we discussed activity and practice assignment both. So, but still, if someone has doubt, oh, that thing you asked, right? Just a second. That type println type thing. Yeah. Println type. Okay, great. 100 plus 70. Okay. System.out.println. See what is happening over here. What would be the output of this code? Forget about all this. Simple println. What would be the output? So if you run this code, you will see the output is coming as Java, that is there. After that, you are simply adding it like a string. It's not 178, it is 10078. Now why this is happening? This is mainly happening because the compiler will move from left to right, so it is seeing that there one string is there. Fine. After that, it is seeing this part, right? Only this part up to 100 it is seeing. Compiler is just seeing this part, Java plus 100. So Java was a string. After that, you are adding 100 with it. So that is not meaningful, right? You are adding a string with a number. So Java assumes that what you wanted was that this number is actually also a string, and you want to add it with Java, concatenate it with Java string. So therefore, only this part would be executed, and it would be Java 100. Forget this 78. It would be something like Java 100. Now Java 100 is itself a string. Right? The compiler thought that you wanted to concatenate 100, and therefore compiler concatenated 100 as a string with Java and made the whole thing as a string. Now again, that whole string Java 100 is itself a string, and with that you are adding 78, which is again a number. So compiler will again do the same process, and it will again think that this is just a addition, and it will make Java 178. I'm sorry, 10078, like the string. But if you just reverse this order, right? What is ABC, whatever. So here, first thing compiler will see that okay, 100 is there, then plus 78 is there. So this is the first operation that you are doing. Okay, so this is simple addition. This is two numeric addition. So it will do 178. After that, it will see okay, so this is my number. So I'm just writing it. So it will see this is 178 plus a string. right? So that means you actually wanted this thing to be a string, right? 170. So compiler will assume that and concatenate 178 with ABC. So that was the, yeah.
So in the both case, result will come same.
No. Why will result come same? It is 178 ABC because here you are adding, right? There
Yeah,
you are
no,
not.
the thing means that whenever it's come to the string and the integer, so it is the reverse way or the anyway, it's take as that string as that whole thing.
Yeah. How will you convert a string to a number? You don't have a logic for that, right? So even if you a
that
character to number is still okay. You can have ASCII value of it. I don't know whether you know ASCII or not, but I think in DBMS I had one tutorial where I explained ASCII. Anyways, so string to number is difficult. Character to number is still okay. So that's why compiler assumes this number is basically a string. That's it.
So one thing here, so the whenever we comparison like that number 3 and that string 3, so I think there will be the two type of comparison same like that the JavaScript.
Two type of comparison means
Means, like that if I say that Python 3 and so here if I write that 3 equal to a string 3, so it will come I think as the true itself, no?
that depends on how, yeah. So okay, you want to say whether numeric is equal to a string, right? A string.
Because it is a loosely typed, weakly typed, not a strictly typed. So
See, so this is one thing that I want to clear about it. Yeah. See, strings are dealt a little differently in Java from any other language. So we will address that later, because if I say that now, there can be multiple ways of creating string, and depending upon the way you are using it may show some different result. But so we will not go into that. But if you are saying it is loosely typed, then this is wrong. Java is a very strictly, strongly typed language, and I would say why. I would tell you why. Any strongly typed language, so this is also good for any interview that you go. So they can ask whether Java is a strongly typed language or not. So always Java is a strongly typed language. Now what do we mean by strongly typed? So there are two aspects of strongly typed languages. The first is that it is statically typed. Static and dynamic typing we discussed in the first activity session, right? That where you define the data type earlier and then you use it, and you cannot change the data type depending upon the value that you are putting it, right? But in Python you declare something, and sorry, you define a variable, inside that you put a number, after that you put a string, no problem. Okay, it will just change. But here you cannot do that. Once you define the data type, it is, you should follow that data type only for that variable. So that is static type. So strongly typed, this definition has two parts. The first part is it should be statically typed. That is, you are mentioning the data type and following that throughout the program. And the second one is the constraints that it puts. I will just explain what do I mean by that. Constraint means, so if I write if 5, will this code run in Python? Print is not a valid statement in Java. I'm just trying to just assume this is a pseudo code. Okay.
Yes, it will run.
It will run, right? Yeah. C, C++, all languages it will run.
Yeah.
But in Java, extra bracket, what did I do? Okay, so it will not run, obviously, that's why. But is it that? Yeah, type mismatch. Yeah. See, in Java, it will never allow you to pass any value which is other than a true false type, which we call the Boolean type, inside if or while or any conditional statement, right? You cannot say that non-zero or non-null numbers is one group, and when I put any non-null type of number or non-null type of representation, like non-null type of representation can be a finite string, it can be a non-zero number, something like that. So I cannot use that in place of a true value, right? Like in Python or in C, C++, you can use that. 5, any non-negative number, non-zero number is a representation of a true value. So if you write if 5 or if 6, if whatever non-zero, it would run. If you write if 0, that means you are trying to say the value is false, the condition is false, so it will not run. Sorry, I mean, yeah, so you can use those numbers as representation of non-zero and zero values, Boolean values, but here you cannot do that. Here you must use Boolean values. So this is just one example. So there are multiple.
Can you use over here lot symbol?
What lot?
Not not.
No, not is not something, no keyword in Java. I don't think it is.
No, it's not the keyword, it's a symbol.
Okay, not, acha, that unary operator not.
Yeah.
So
we can negate in Java.
You cannot use, right? You can only use it. You can only use not when 5 means true. Then only not 5 means false, right?
Okay.
Got it. So 5 itself does not mean true. Then how can you say not means false? So the idea is you should use the specific type only which is dedicated for a specific purpose. You cannot use representation of some other type as a representative, as a placeholder for some other logic. So you should use what is there for what. It is very disciplined language, I would say. You cannot use any other representation. So that's why two things are there. The first is statically typed, and the second thing is this type of constraints which you must conform to in order to write a code. That's which makes a strongly typed language. Strongly typed language. So Java is a strongly typed language. Fine. Okay. Yeah. Was someone saying anything? I was just seeking. Yeah, you may ask. Someone was actually trying to say something when I was telling. Okay, fine. So the doubts that we got initially was static. This thing was covered. Skeleton is covered. Type conversion. This is not type conversion. This is that I addressed earlier also. Type conversion and casting is something that we will move to after inheritance. Fine. Constructors and main method. Main method is done. Yeah, public in class and public function. See, I think Kumar asked this. So as I said, that public class is something which will give you access. It has no constraint for accessing. And again, public method is something that can be accessed by an object that can be accessed anywhere. But unless and until we define the constraints which are there for other access specifier like private, protected, default, right? Unless we mention that, the exact use of public would not be clear. So we cannot explain that now. We will do that in the upcoming weeks. So when we explain what is the restriction imposed by protected, what is the restriction imposed by private, then we will discuss what is the advantage, or not advantage I would say, but what is the functionality of public. As of now, just understand it has no restriction. That's it. That's why we are using it in the initial week. Constructor is another thing. See, constructor is just here initializing the object. That's it. Whenever you are, so I will just write. Fine. So you have some X over here, some data member X, right? And maybe some method void fun. Okay. So whenever you are writing this statement of defining a reference variable, or I mean an object, so this statement, when you are writing to create an object of the student class, this is actually you are calling the constructor. When you are writing student, that means you are calling the constructor. Fine. Now, if you are calling a constructor, it looks somewhat like a function call, but I have not defined any function of this format over here. Still, it is not giving me any error. Why is it so? This is so because if you are not defining any constructor, I mean constructor is just a function. I will define what it is, but assume that there is a function which we call constructor, and which definition is something like this only, a class name only. Okay. So we have not defined it, but still it is not giving me error because the internal system provides a default definition of constructor, even if you do not write it. But if you write it, that definition is hidden. that gets hidden, right? So if I write, the way to write a constructor is you define it with the same name as the class name, fine, and then you just do the initialization of the variables. So I am initializing x with 9, fine. Now as here we were writing void, that it is not returning anything, right? If I would have written int, that is it is returning a value, then I would have to return an integer value, fine. But constructor does not have any return type. We will not provide any return type for the constructor. It is a special kind of method. We will not have any return type for constructors. So this is condition 1. Constructor name should be same as the class name, fine. This is condition 2. And regarding the public private, this thing that we provide, right? So that depends upon functionality. There is no specific rule. Okay, someone will say that a constructor should always be public or default, but it is not actually correct. We will address, there is a specific use of that, and we will address those things later. But yeah, it is not mandatory. But if you define your constructor as private, we have not discussed what is the use of private and all. So but your object cannot be created, this cannot be created. Now why is it so? Because private, again we will come to this later, but private access specifier means that you cannot access this outside using an object. You cannot, it would be only a property of this class which can be accessed by other member function of this class. So if I define this function, right, so it can use this student, I mean the private method that we are discussing, right? It can call this student method, call the constructor, I mean. I will not going into the syntax because we will discuss this again in great detail. But basically it means, forget about private, protected and public, all those things. Just the main point is constructor name should be same as class name and it should not have any return type. So this is the definition of a constructor. And you can write whatever code you want inside constructor, no one will stop you. You can do printing, you can do whatever. But the idea of a constructor is it would initialize the value of the object, because here you are defining an object, and whenever you are defining it, inside the constructor is automatically called, right? Here you are calling, I mean, yeah, so as a part of this statement only. So therefore you are initializing the object. After that you can change the value, but here you are initializing.
Sir, I have a question here.
Yeah.
In Python, the constructor is underscore init underscore, and it takes arguments. But here I am saying, yes. But here I am explicitly providing an argument later once I have initiated I have created a new student object. But isn't that violating the constraint that I am accessing the private variables or private attributes of the class of the object? And directly setting x equal to u, x is not supposed to be directly, or is it? X can be directly accessed like this.
See, who is accessing x? That's the question. Are you, see, let us go back to that real world scenario. Who is the object? Who is the student? S, this S variable, this S is the student, right? So
yes.
This is your encapsulation. I mean, you know that object oriented program means encapsulation is one property. So this is your encapsulation. So inside the class, whatever happens, that is I mean, I mean the class is only accessing it. So there is no problem in that. It is the blueprint. Problem occurs when you do not, I mean, you do not change the blueprint, but you try to make some change on the object. That is a problem. Object is an external world entity. Object means student, employee, whatever. Okay, so that is something which is external. The definition of class is something which is internal. It is the encapsulated thing. So inside class, you can do whatever access you want. The security standpoint comes into being when you are accessing it from main method. I will give you a practical example, then you will understand. So what will happen in an industry is they will have these classes defined already. You are a programmer, you are working in an industry. They will have some set of classes. I mean, it's not always that all classes are defined. You are making some things. But what I mean is, suppose you are working on a project and that project uses many classes, many big classes, which has already been defined and which are preserved, right? On those classes, you want to make object of those classes and you want to make an application of that. So So I would make more sense if I give an example. So suppose one organization is there. So they have already worked with XYZ bank. They have developed the banking system for XYZ bank. Okay, so they have created the classes and I mean whatever is required. The mainly I'm just talking in terms of classes now. So they have created the classes while making the program or making the application for that XYZ bank, right? Now after 5 years, that organization also wants to work with another bank, ABC bank. Now see, 70 at least 70% of the thing would be similar, right? So savings account, whatever, I mean the banking things, 70%, 60% would be similar. It would not change. After that, ABC bank would have its own, I mean, own protocols, own logic. So that the company has to again code, right? So what the company thinks says, okay, I have worked with XYZ and then I have created these classes and all these things. So I would directly use those classes as much as possible. Now you are a new programmer who has been recruited into the company. Okay, so now at your time the company is working with ABC Bank. So all those classes which are there, do you think the company will give direct access to the classes to you as a new programmer? They will never give that, right? So what they will do is these classes and all these files which are already there, which are time proven that they work, everything is fine, right? So all these things would be there in their system, safe in some location. You will only get access of the main. You will write the main method. I'm just speaking very crudely. This is just to give you the idea. So basically, you will have the main method to work on that. Okay, so you can create an object of that class, and you know this variables are there, and this behavior. I mean the functions are there. So you define the object and you can access it. Okay, so the external thing, the out of security thing is coming inside the main method or inside some other function that you are writing inside the class. I mean that is your home itself. So no security problem inside the home, right? So that is where there is no issue. Issue will come when you can access it outside. Then the problem comes. See, if I'm defining a variable private, right, then all member function can access it inside the class, no issues. But object is something which is an external thing, right? You can create as a new programmer, you can create an object, and suppose this X thing is very important, right? Now if as a new programmer you access this object and modify its value, then that may be something problematic. So therefore, if you define it as private, Java will not allow you to do that. So this is how you ensure encapsulation. Okay, so inside class everything is fine. Outside the class, when you're accessing it main or in some other class, then it is problem. So private will come into play at that point. Is the idea?
Yes, sir, understood, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, understood, sir.
Yeah. So see, in all this Java program, I mean, syntax you can always refer, but ideas are what is important. So you should always think in terms of real life. Always try to map it something to real life problem. Okay. Otherwise, you cannot implement the features that you learned in terms of syntax. Okay. Yeah, constructor, this is what the basic idea of constructor is. There are many things to it, and overloading constructor is there. There are many other choices. So you see, this is basically a constructor overload, right? Now, what do you mean by overload? Overload means we will discuss this thing in the next Saturday session also in detail, right? So, but there is a constructor overloading. You are having two constructor, one a parameterized one a default one. Okay, fine. But one problem that I want to discuss is, and with this I would end the session today. What happens now? Forget this method. Okay, forget private int and all. See, just a second. Yeah. So I have a constructor that I have defined, which is accepting a parameter. Fine, which is accepting a parameter. But initially, when I have not defined this constructor, this parameterized constructor, I could have written the statement this, right? See, everything works. There is no error in the code. But when I have defined this constructor explicitly, but what I'm thinking is, okay, I have defined a parameterized constructor. So I can expect that I should have the default no argument constructor, which was initially working, which the system provided internally, JVM provided. But this is the thing that would not be provided. Once you declare any constructor, let it be parameterized, let it be no argument, let it be anything. If you define one constructor, the default constructor which the system provides you, the default no argument constructor. So just observe this. The default constructor which the system provides, it is a no argument constructor. It is not a parameterized constructor, and it will only provide a no argument constructor. So once you declare any constructor, the no argument default constructor gets hidden, which was provided by the system, and therefore now this line is an error. You can see it is giving an error. The constructor student, see, I don't know whether you can read it. The constructor student, no, there are no arguments inside this student, is undefined. Fine. That means this call is not getting resolved. It is not able to find it. So in order to solve this problem, we have to explicitly define a no argument constructor. That's it. So this is one issue. Yeah, now it works. Okay, and this will happen for any parameterized constructor and any other form of constructor also. Fine. Okay, so this was one issue, and on this issue I would just discuss one question. So shallow copy, deep copy we will cover in Saturday's session. For that, yeah, this question. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, so this is the let me make it a little smaller. Yeah, see, here I have defined a parameterized constructor, but there is one catch with this parameterized constructor. The parameter is itself an object of the same class. Okay, so this is what a copy constructor looks like. So sir has taught this thing in the second last lecture of this thing. Yeah. So a copy constructor, which basically means you can use this constructor to make a copy of another object. So if I have an object student S over here, right, and I set the value of X equal to say 8, fine, and then I again want to create another object student S2, right, but I want this student S2 to have the properties of the S, the student S, right? I want to have the properties of student S initialized. I mean that it should be initialized. Later I can change, that is not a concern, but I want to initialize it with the properties of the S object. So what I can do, I can just define this student S, and then I can just write S dot X equal to, fine. Obviously understand this X on the left hand side, whose property is this X? This is S2's X, because you are calling S2, you are creating S2. So this left hand side X is the property of S2. You are creating it. When you are writing this statement to define S2, you are calling this student method, I mean this student constructor, right? So you are going to this constructor only because you are creating this, I mean you are going it for S2 method, S2 object, right? So this X left hand side is a property of S2, not S. This X is the left hand side X is not for X, it is for S2. So here I'm coming to that self thing. I think Mr. Sandeep said about that. So there is something which we call this in Java. You can also write this. Okay, so this is implicit. Even if you do not write this, then also it would take. There is no error in that. But if you write this, this is a better coding, I would say, coding style. Fine. So similar thing. Even if we delete it, it will always consider it. Now, what is this? This is basically a reference to the current object that you are referring to. I mean, since I am referring to S2 over here. Okay. So this S2, this will refer to this S2. Okay. So when I'm writing this, it means to this S2. Current object under execution is pointed by this. Can you unmute yourself? Someone is voice is coming. Okay, okay. Fine. So there is a copy constructor. This is what we call a copy constructor. Fine. See, now one problem is coming. Can you tell me the problem? The same problem that I discussed, right?
Yes, sir.
Default constructor is it.
Yeah, actually default constructor, if you don't define any constructor, then default constructor will be provided by the compiler. But if you define your own one, then we have to define default constructor also.
Very good. Now that was the idea. Now see this code. Let's come back to this code. So copy constructor idea is clear, right? I just want to initialize another object with the the properties of the previous object that I created. Something like that. So this employee is basically a copy constructor. That's it. Right? So can you explain why this statement is correct? The top option one. Can
Sir,
someone explain me that? One cannot create an object of the employee class.
Sir, the employee class object isn't created because the default constructor is not being executed.
Okay, so let me make another statement. You cannot create any object of this class, not default, not no argument, nothing. You can create no object.
Sir, because there is no default constructor.
Okay, fine. But can I create a parameterized object or something like that?
Sir, no, because there is only the copy constructor present, no parameterized or no default constructor present there. That is why, because for creating the object, we need at least one object
to pass into the copy constructor.
Copy constructor, yes.
Exactly. See, so that was the idea. So if I see this code,
E has not been created as an object, sir, yet. So only after E has been created as an object, can we use that within the brackets employee.
Yeah, exactly. So I need to create at least one object, right? I need to create at least one object. Then only I can define it. Since I cannot create any object, therefore I cannot pass it into the copy constructor. And also I do not have any other constructor definition in this class. That's why, and obviously the copy constructor will hide the default constructor. That's why there is no way we can create any object of this class. Not parameterized, not default, nothing. We cannot create. It's just a dead class. Okay, so this was one idea, and I think this code results in compilation error. That is quite okay because you understand that.
One doubt is if instead of within the bracket employee E, instead of that, if it had been employee E1, then it would pass through. Within the bracket employee E, instead of that, if it is employee E1, because employee E1 has been already, that object has been created, I think.
Do you think that? Okay, so it is not like that, right?
Okay.
See, the error is occurring because, okay, that means there is a gap in understanding. See, the error is occurring because what is happening over here? The first line, employee E1 equal to new employee. See, this is basically calling a default constructor. Now, default constructor is not there, it is hidden. That is fine. Okay, so therefore this will generate an error. So this answers the last option. This code results in a compilation. Solved out. No issues. But my question is, so that means this object is not created, right? Because it could not call the default constructor. Follow? Is it correct? I mean, you do not have the default constructor, right? It is hidden. That's why E1 object itself is not created. How can you pass it?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Got it. So you cannot pass it. And and one more point that is, you said that employee E1, right? So this is something that we should be very clear about it. Should I do it now? Okay. How many of you can continue the session for at least 15 minutes? Then I will move to the topic call by reference, call by value. Otherwise, we will do it on Saturday. And also, ma'am, what should we do? Should I do one more topic or just after discussing this, we should conclude?
We can just ask them to raise their hands, and if there are majority of them who want to stay back, I think we can continue. Otherwise, we'll have it on Saturday.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to answer. Okay, even if we do not do it today, I have to do it on Saturday. Confirm. So if people want to do it today, it would be good, because as you
Okay,
said, na,
yeah, then go ahead. I think there'll always be a recorded session. If somebody wants to leave, they can watch it later, right?
okay. See, you said employee E1, right? So as of now, this concept is clear that it is calling default, and that's why it's not working. But let me just go to this problem. This is okay. I don't want to confuse with these things. So are you all aware of, not personally I'm telling, I'm just telling in Python where you have learned it, whether you have learned it or not. So this concept of call by value, call by reference, these things you all know as a part of curriculum?
Sir, I know.
No, what I mean is it taught as a part of curriculum in Python or any other?
I think it was alluded to, but it wasn't part of the curriculum itself.
Okay, then I cannot assume that, right? We have to discuss. See, so there are two ways in which you can pass parameter to a function, right? The first we call by value, the second we call by reference type. So in some languages they also call it call by pointer, call by other types. I mean, it's somewhat similar, but broadly there are two types, which is call by reference and call by value. Now what are these two things? I would just take one example. Oh, one more property that I forgot to tell about static. If you define a static method, then it can only be used by other static method. You cannot call a non-static method from a static method. I will display what I mean. There is another property of static. What was the right? So this is a for each loop. I think in the lecture it has been taught. I think you should have learned it. Okay, fine. Yeah. So what do we think the output would be? What do you think would the output be? Oh, so that property I was talking about, right? So if you delete this static, see, it would give you an error when I'm calling fun. So it would say cannot make a static reference to a non-static method. Since main itself is a static method, only because of that you can, whatever method you call inside main directly, don't consider if you are using an object, that is fine. We discussed all the examples till now by using objects. Whenever I'm calling a method, I'm using an object. But here the fun method is inside the test1 class itself, right? So we are not making any object for that. So if you are directly trying to call the fun method, right, so we must use static, because main is static. Fine. So if you would have another method like public void fun2, right? So inside this fun1 method, fun method, you can call fun2 method directly. That will not be a problem. See, it's not an error, since both fun1 and fun2 are non-static. But if you define one method as static, then you can only call other static methods inside it directly.
Sir, output will be 8 and then 105.6.
805.6.
Output will be 805.6. Fine. Why is it so? Why the array is getting changed and why the variable is not getting changed?
No, actually, y is the intermediate variable where the x value is copying to the y. And if it is changed in this y, there will be no effect on the x.
Okay, so I'm just passing it in the same way, right? I'm passing the array and passing the
Yeah,
variable.
yeah, but it is a copying the value.
But
When
why? Acha, yeah. So it is copying the value. So you want to say that this a
no,
itself.
y a is reference.
Yeah. So that was.
No, I'm talking about the y.
Yeah, I understood that. I'm just asking that why the y is changing and not changing and a is changing.
Yeah,
right?
Because
Sir,
it is taking difference.
Sir, because for array, it is array is pointing towards the address of the value. So it is copying the address in A.
Exactly.
So that is why array is changing, because both are pointing to the same address. Whereas in Y, the actual value is being copied in Y. So Y gets changed and X does not, because the copy is getting changed, not the variable itself.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's correct. So see, for others also, what's happening if I run it? Let me run it first. So you will get 8. So the value of x was initially 8. I modified, I passed the value of x as a parameter to this function. Fine. I copied it into y and I changed the value of y. Fine. Then I printed the value of x after calling this function. But still the value of 8 is preserved. It is not changed to 200. That's logical because we are doing the change in y. That is okay. But why, when I'm passing the same thing in the same way, I'm doing the same thing with array and I'm changing a over here, right? I'm changing a0 equal to 100. Then why is that change reflected? You can see that here it is 100. It's not 4 anymore. As I don't know who said the answer, but yeah, when we pass this array in the function, right? This is basically it's a memory look. It's pointing to a memory location. That is, it is a reference that we discussed, right? All objects, arrays, these are reference to a particular memory location in which the value 4, 5, 6 is stored.
Basically, any bulk memory, then we are using the reference.
Yeah. So that is a reference, that is an address. So array is an object of a class. Not only arrays, I mean this kind of data structure. I mean mainly now consider array only. So when I'm passing an object, passing an array, these are basically references. That's why in that process discussion, right? In that when I discussed heap, stack, all that. So we mentioned that this is just a pointer. This is just like an address pointer, right? So you're passing the address to this A. Now address is something which is very specific. It is there in the memory, right? So since you're passing the address, so A will make, so this change, what A is making, this will happen on the memory location itself, right? But y is just a variable and x is another variable. It's not a memory location, it's a variable, right? Not a memory location is the wrong thing to say. I would say x is just it's a variable, it's not a reference type. But arrays and objects are reference type. Reference type points to address. So when you make changes on the address itself, then how many, whatever number of reference point to that particular address, it will reflect the result. Fine. But when I'm making the change on a single variable, which is not a reference, that is, it is not happening on that address. It's just happening for the particular value. So this is called call by value. I mean, in terms of Java, when you are passing these kind of primitive arguments, I mean, this integer argument, float, double, this kind of variable values, it is a if you are passing that thing, only the value is getting called. Sorry, not called, value is getting passed. But when you are changing this array and all these kind of objects, this is the reference, the address is getting passed, and that's why the change is reflected. Fine. But there is one thing that I want to say. Java actually what's happening over here is call by value only. Java has call by value only. If someone says Java has call by reference, it is a debated thing, but it is not proper to say call by reference. Just have this idea. Call by reference means you are you are passing the address itself, and on that address changes are happening. Therefore, you can have multiple reference to that object. What I mean is, suppose I define another array AR2, fine, and I simply write ARR, not caps lock, ARR. What do you think is happening over here? What do you think is happening over here? Keep this thing in mind. I have one array ARR, I have another array AR2, and I'm simply making ARR equal to AR2. What is happening?
Yeah, here happening is the same.
But their address is getting copied of ARR to ARR2.
Yeah, so for others also, see what's happening actually. Inside heap, oh sorry, this is not heap, inside stack, because this is a local initialization. So assume this is your stack. I'm not going into the activation record. I assume this one activation record only. Okay, activation record. This whole thing is one activation record, and this is the part of that stack. This is the whole stack. Pardon me for the drawing. Yeah. See, here we have one memory allocated, and 4, 5, 6 is stored. So this is the memory allocation. These exactly these cells, these boxes are the memories. Fine. Now, initially I had the array ARR, right, which was 4, 5, 6. ARR, see, ARR 4, 5, 6. That means I have a pointer, sorry, not pointer, I have a variable, kind of a reference, which is pointing to this first location. I mean, ARR itself has a memory value. So this diagram I have drawn earlier also, but I would draw it again. Red is fine. ARR itself has a different memory cell. Don't confuse it with the first cell of 456. ARR has a different memory cell. So maybe this is OXFF. Maybe this is OXA0, right? This is OX something F1, whatever. These are basically memories, right? So ARR itself has a different memory, OXFF. But this is storing OXA0. Fine. So this is the idea. Now when you write ARR2 equal to ARR, you define an array equal to integer, fine, equal to, you write ARR. What will it do? Will it make another cell for 456? Right? It will not do like that. It is not something like that. So when you are passing this, even if you are doing this thing and this thing, this int y, right? This and this one. Where was that? This passing, right? It is ARR is getting copied into integer array A, right? This passing and this statement, I mean the statement number 14 and passing this ARR to this value, these two are same thing. I mean it's kind of same thing. You are just copying the address. That means what's happening over here is no separate cell 456 is created when you are making this copy. Only one cell is created. One cell is created over here, that is at some other memory location, let us say B1, and this also is storing OXA0, the started memory location, and this is basically ARR2. I mean, yeah, ARR2. Got the idea? So this is how it is happening. Only you are copying the address. Now, when you are copying the address itself, that means whatever change you are doing using ARR2 or using ARR, both of them will be reflected at this address only, right? But in terms of X and Y, when you define something called int X equal to 8, and then you simply pass it in a method like this into Y, right? So this Y, how the structure will be? See, there would be a separate structure X. I mean, it has a memory, say OX61, and there is another memory OXB1. This is your representation for X. This is your representation for Y. What was X storing? 8. Right here, I've just, let's take this only 8. When you are writing int Y equal to X or fun X, and here you have one method fun where you are accepting int Y and you are writing, we are using that Y equal to 100, right? What's happening over here is in this part and in this statement, they are basically the same thing. When you're copying it, this is just copying, right? So this is basically, it will store 100 over here. I mean, this method. Okay, don't forget this method. Here you are changing it to 100, right? So here it is getting changed to 100. So here you are copying the value of X initially and changing it later to 100. But initially, before you execute this statement, right, making Y equal to 100, initially Y was 8. Just assume that compiler has seen executed up to this point. That is, it has copied the value of X into Y. So see here, it is not copying the address. In case of array, it was copying the address because this is just a reference storing the address. But it is here, X is a value. So you are copying the value only. And when you are changing this 8 to 100, it is only getting changed for Y because you are not changing the address. You are only changing the value. So X would still be 8. Okay. So this is how this is working. So that is called pass. I mean, you are calling, you are sending it reference, you are sending it value, sending the value. But why I was telling that Java, although you are seeing both the value of reference and value together, but actually Java only has call by value. Why I said so is because when you are passing this array argument, when you are passing this thing int A, and here you are passing ARR. Call by value means you are copying and you are not making a new memory location. See what's happening actually over here. You are only copying the address itself. You are only copying the address itself. So although the change is looking like you are copying by reference, but since the reference is just a memory location, so you are copying that memory location. So you can assume call by, I mean, this copying of reference is just copying by value of the address. Now this is I know this is confusing. So if you do not get this and if you debate on it, it's still okay. People are debating on it. But basic idea of how to pass an array or any object and how to pass a, I mean, normal variable, primitive variable, that should be clear. Okay. So that is important. And so that was call by value, call by reference. Why I address this thing is because you, someone that I don't know your name, who was actually interacting about that employee, this assignment copy.
No, sir, I'm Srinath here, but
Srinath, yeah.
I'll try to understand it, sir, later. No problem.
Yeah, you are saying
sure.
that E1, right? It should be employee.
Yeah,
E1.
yeah, but I am still not understood. But I could understand the overall picture. I'll try to learn it on.
Yeah. So
thanks for your time.
Yeah. What I meant was, even if you write X over here, even if you write this Y to be X int X, right? You meant that E1 was here. So if you define employee E1 here rather than employee, it may work. So it has nothing to, this X has nothing to do with this X. That's what I mean. When you are calling function X over here and function X over here, it has nothing to do with. So this is X and this X would be different. Even if I change Y to X, it would be different. So this is just a different memory location. Okay, it doesn't matter even if the name is same. So Okay, so just repeating it briefly for others also. This x, if you are changing x equal to 9, right, over here, and you are inside main method. Inside main method, you are calling the fun method with say another x, and inside main you have defined this x equal to 7. Okay, fine. So this x inside main method, this is not at all same with this x method. You can write here x, you can write here y, z, whatever, but this is totally independent of this thing. You can use the same name, you can use different name, but they are independent. They are not at same location. So
two are in separate scope.
Yeah, they are not at all in the, because we are calling another activation record, right? So this will be a totally different activation record. This is fun's activation record, and this is mains activation record. So this x would be in the mains activation record. This x would be inside fun's activation record. So these two x are totally separate memory location, although the name are same. Fine. So that has nothing to do with that copy constructor thing. You can, yeah. So that's why I thought of discussing call by value, call by reference. Okay. So if it is not clear, you can question in Saturday's session, and in Saturday's session we will discuss some other things also, like overloading, constructors, and deep copy, shallow copy. So if you while discussing deep copy, shallow copy, this thing will again come. Fine. If someone is not understood, we will address that. Okay. So the idea of this session was mainly to give you the logic behind OOPS and how you can map these things. In a Saturday session, I would expect you have gone through the contents, and we could have more specific doubts on the contents of the week. Fine. Okay. Okay. Fine, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And good night.
Thanks. Yeah. Good night. Good night. Thanks for attending.
Yeah. Good night, sir.
Good night.
Bye.